Welcome to the Fit Fanatics. Today I'm here with Mary Henderson, who is a licensed professional counselor and marriage and family therapist. Welcome, Mary. How are you today?
I am doing well. I'm so excited to be with you.
Thank you for making time for us, Mary. And what I didn't add there is you're also an author.
Ye- Yes. We'll talk a little bit about those offerings as we go along, I'm sure.
Absolutely. All right, Mary, let's get into it because there's a lot I want to dig into here with you. First thing is, just getting a little bit about your history. If you can give us a background, please.
Yes. Well, I'm married. My husband is John, and we have three grown children and two grandchildren. Like you said, I'm a licensed counselor and marriage and family therapist. It's my joy to counsel people all around the world because I counsel people that work with a nonprofit faith-based organization called Crew. So my day is filled working on like a Zoom type platform and getting to help people in other countries as well as the US. Let's see, for fun, I like to hike and I also do theatrical improv. That's my background has been theater before I was a counselor. So I have a lot of varying interests.
Great. We'll get into that. But you mentioned something that I want to touch on with regard to your work with Crew.
Yes.
And you said you're working with people all over the world and using the Zoom platform, virtual. I have people that feel virtual, can't do it, not effective, and then I have others that are thriving. That
Hmm.
they are, getting resource or getting support in many ways that they didn't have access to before.
Yeah.
So let me hear a little bit about what your experience has been with doing the virtual and the platform.
Yes. Well, I think that if the only way we can get what we need is virtual, we need to not let that be a barrier. We need to go for it because, like I said, I've helped people in very remote parts of the world, and it's such a great thing to be able to work with them in that way and make and have really authentic connections. I love to be in person. That's always my preference, but that's just not possible, even for me. And so I would say, yeah, don't let that be a hindrance or a limitation. Sure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mary, for saying that. Like I said, I couldn't go on without making that point because I'm in agreement with you. We can't let those things stop us from getting the support resources that we need that can help us thrive, right?
Absolutely. 100%. Yes.
All right, Mary. So I did a little research on your background and especially within your health and wellness journey.
Yes.
I was surprised to hear that. I believe it was in 2003. You were in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Tell
Yes.
us about that, Mary. What was going on?
Yeah, most people find it hard to believe because I live a totally normal, active, healthy life now, exercising an hour a day. But yeah, back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, I got to the point where I was in a wheelchair. I could hardly feed myself or brush my own teeth. That's how bad I got. After living a totally normal, healthy life before that, what happened, just to briefly summarize, is we were living in New Zealand at the time. I had three young children. I was working with my same organization that I work with now, and my health just started going down out of nowhere. We were packing and I was doing a lot of movement, getting ready to move again to Budapest, Hungary this time. And as I was doing all this movement, my body just got achier and achier, achier, achier. It could not recover. So I kept pushing myself because I had to move by December 4th back then, the late 1990s. And I thought, well, I'll rest and recover when I get to Hungary. And boy, when I got to Hungary, I just kept going down, 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 down until after 3 months, I had to get on a plane and come back to America to get diagnosed because there just wasn't the diagnostic ability back then. And my kids had just started school, an international school. So my husband and kids stayed in Hungary because I didn't want to uproot them. Came back to the States, got diagnosed after a lot of tests with what was called fibromyalgia. It was not known a lot back then like it is now. And that started a 6-year journey of up and down. I did move back to Hungary trying to make things work, but finally we had to move back to the States after 6 years because I got terrible. And that's where I started discovering a lot of things that really, really helped. And mostly all in the natural realm of things.
So making that transition back to Budapest with your family, that was
Yeah.
after you got the diagnosis. So you're in another country, right?
Yes. Yeah.
With a new diagnosis.
Yes.
How do you start facilitating what needs to happen to take care of yourself
I
and
know. It
your
was,
family?
I know, because I did not speak the language, Hungarian, and we were starting classes. But, I just, to take care of myself, basically, like I said, it had to come back to the States. And really, when I did not really start getting a lot better till 6 years later when we moved back. And I just started a number, I saw, doctors did not and still don't have a definite path for improvement for fibromyalgia or so many chronic illnesses. There's not a definite path. So, a doctor I saw in California after 6 years, he said, I've seen hundreds of patients with fibromyalgia. And he was a medical doctor, but he used the full array of natural treatments also. He said for each patient with fibromyalgia, and I found this is true for most chronic illnesses, he said it's a different combination of things that help them. So we'll start with the things I've seen help the most people. We'll work through those and see what helps you. And that is how I found the plethora of things like nutrition, massage therapy, acupuncture, chiropractic. It takes a village to keep me, although now I don't have to do those things quite as much. But I had a combination of things that got me, living a normal life.
Mary, what was during that time before, after the diagnosis, before you saw that physician or came in contact with him? So thinking it's the 6 years
Yeah.
diagnosis. What were
Yeah.
the major physical and mental obstacles that were attacking you?
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of things that I think are actually, even though I was in Budapest for a lot of that, and then I think two of the big obstacles are not knowing what to do because you try a lot of things, or maybe there's no roadmap for improvement, and feeling hopeless and discouraged. And those two I find are kind of universal when it comes to some chronic or medical condition that just won't get better. Is that
Yeah.
answering your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. It's and the reason why I'm pressing on that, Mary, is because I have several clients that I've worked with in my over 20 years in the health and fitness industry with fibromyalgia, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, where it's this you're absolutely and that doctor, was so right, I believe, in saying that it's a combination of different things for different individuals.
Yeah.
We're not all the same. And once we can open our mind to that, like I believe you did, then
Mhm.
you're like, okay, acupuncture, you just tried all the things and probably gravitated to a few or a couple that really you felt an impact or a difference with.
Definitely. There were things that other people with fibromyalgia would say, this is the answer. This has given me so much improvement.
Mhm.
And I would try it. It would not help me at all. And I learned, though, to not let me give up. I just kept going and trying the things that I would hear help the most people, like whether it was through the internet or other individuals. When I would see this is something that a significant number of people are saying helps them, I'll try it. And I learned to think if it doesn't help me, just try the next thing because it may, and it would be often the thing that would get me up a little more and then another thing and another. So, but I find like two things when we're feeling stuck.
Yeah.
I have an article on my website, maryhenderson.org, under resources, 5 things that help get unstuck. And I'd say, I thought about these after many years of working with my illness. What are the things that really helped me the most? And the first one is decide to be determined. Like I decided to be like a dog with a bone. I am not going to give up. I'm not going to settle for less than I want, which is to be 100%. I've never gotten to 100%, but I live a normal life. So decide to be determined. Although when we're so sick, often we don't feel like being determined. That brings me to my second thing is get help. Employ the help of friends to help you think of what to do next. Your family and whatever professional specializes in your situation, but it may not be one professional. one professional is supposed to specialize may not help you. Now I have to be determined and try another one. And then a third thing out of 5 that helped me get unstuck is to
Yeah.
add what is healthy and get rid of what is toxic. So when I think of what is toxic, that can be everything from the physical foods we eat, environmental things. It can be toxic relationships, toxic thought patterns I'm stuck in, toxic media I take in. Like for one example, I like true crime. I enjoy listening to crime because it's a mystery. But I discovered it's not a place for my mind to dwell a lot. I also listen to a lot of comedians on YouTube and just let myself be, um, happy with hearing them. So media is another one. And then adding, so get rid of what's toxic, add what's healthy. Of course, that means foods, that means rest, prioritizing sleep, healthy relationships, positive people. And then so that's 3. The fourth one, what is the fourth one? I'm drawing a little blank here. Let's see. I'm going to have to pass on that one. But
Okay.
the fifth one has been my relationship with God and just drawing near to Him and getting strength spiritually from God.
Okay. We're good. These are great. And we're going to have to get number 4. You're going to have to.
I know. I've got notes here. I got notes. I'm going to have to look through what was number 4.
Yes,
Okay, keep going.
yes,
Keep going.
tell us, Mary. Tell us.
I'll see if I can find it. Oh, here it is.
Tell
Oh,
me.
yes, it's important. Number 4, when you're stuck and discouraged, try new things. We get to where we're stuck, and the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Well, what I do and we all do is we try harder that thing. We'll do it more. We'll do it more. And it's not really giving results, or we're afraid of something. I was afraid of acupuncture for a long time. I did not want acupuncture. And people kept saying it's helped these people with chronic health issues and pain, especially. Now it's a normal part of my regimen. I love it. I'm not afraid of it, but it's one of those new things. There may be things you've heard of could help. And when you stop and think about it, you're like, yeah, I'm not trying that, but it seems to help a lot of people. And that may be the very thing. So those
Yes,
are,
we needed that number 4. And
yeah.
okay, we need all of them actually, Mary. I'm gonna take you back to number 1, and I believe that was decide to be determined.
Yes.
Okay. That's a big one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this, Mary. I don't know if I shared this with you, but I have shared it with my audience before. I was in a car accident. I'm gonna say I don't even remember, 20 years ago maybe. And as a result of that car accident, I had a double lumbar fusion in my back.
Wow.
And that whole process, what you described, the 5 steps of being unstuck, I went through. I went through. And so I can definitely validate from my personal experience, it works. Those 5 tips, those 5 strategies for getting unstuck are powerful and they are effective. So that first one, decide to be determined.
Yeah.
That's a big one, Mary. And I'm going to press you on it again because why would push? Because you could have easily, like you said, just given up. This is the way it is. I love how you said, I'm not going to just succumb to this is the way it's going to be for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
What gave you the energy, the drive to be like, no, because that's what happened to me. I was like, I'm not going to be like this, or I'm not going to be known as I'm always on this heating pad. I get grumpsters because I'm in pain. I don't want to be around people. I had to figure things out.
Yeah.
What got you going, Mary, to make that decide to be determined?
Well, there were a few things, but I know one of them, and I always recommend this, is to think of what are your hopes and dreams? What is it you really want that you're going to be so limited from having if you don't improve? Like one for me was my kids were still in like high school, but I was having trouble even holding a remote control. I thought I want to be able to hold a grandchild one day. I was so bad. I could not sustain, this position. And I remember thinking, I want to hold a grandchild. And even I saw one of my older friends jumping in a like bouncy house with her grandkids. I was like, I want to be able to do that. And I thought, so I think seeing what are your dreams that make you keep going toward that, and even putting it somewhere you can see, 3, 4, 5 things you really want. And I will say another one was enlisting those people in life. There are certain people with giftings to help others. And those people came out of the woodwork. I mean, for me, it was in my church community, but whatever community you're part of, there are people that really want to help. And those were people that Yeah. Got on board with me, like, well, what do we need to do? What can we do to help? Let other people's determination, kind of help and fuel you, like almost like you need a crutch until you can walk on your own. Those were a couple of the things I'd say.
So
Yeah.
powerful, Mary. Yes, I see that happen in others, and that happened within me. How did you at that time? You said you had this abundance of support from family and friends. Did you ask for it? Did they just sense it? Because a lot of people, in your profession, I
Yeah.
think go through a process where they first you're not sure about asking for help, and then it's like, who did they ask for help, and then finding help, and then they find you.
Yes. 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 Well, we were desperate. There's that quote, desperate times call for desperate measures. I say we, my husband and I. And, I'm not one to usually ask for help. I'm independent. I want to do it on my own. But I mean, I was so desperate. It's like I would ask for help. And I kind of embarrass myself now thinking of how I went out there and asked sometimes, but people would say yes. Maybe some said no, but a lot of people really wanted to help. So, yes, I did ask. When I came back to the States, we knew the place to come was Austin for a variety of reasons, but we didn't know who we'd stay with. So my husband's like, we're just like having this late afternoon desperation conversation in Budapest. Who could we ask that you could stay with? You're going to be there for a while. You can't drive. And he's like, okay, who of all people could you see yourself? And there was one lady who I'd done some things with at church. She just had a really nurturing, motherly way about her. I said, well, let's ask her. And, they welcomed me, she and her elderly husband. I mean, yeah, with open arms and drove me everywhere, did all these things. So that's just an example of asking. And yeah, it came through. Like I say, when you want to get better, you got to do things you're not that comfortable with.
Yes, you're right. Yes, if you truly want to get better, now obviously you had that drive. I mean, you're here
Yeah.
now, you're sharing with us, all of
Mhm.
the benefits of the hard work and determination and resilience.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. If you want to get better, you
Mhm.
got to be able to do things out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you. I think that not only helps the physical aspect of whatever's going on in your particular case
Mhm.
of fibromyalgia, for my case, recovering from a back surgery. But I also think more so the mental,
Yeah.
up here. I'm
Yeah.
getting better. I'm getting stronger. I'm more balanced. I'm more independent. And then we start feeling, like, okay, it's the sun's out. The birds are chirping. It just has this effect that just keeps going that we
It
need.
does. It does, Susie. I can't help it. One thing keeps coming to my mind that also really helped. So when I had to move back to America after 6 years, I was sitting one day in my friend's house, and she and another friend were talking behind me, and I heard them say, "She's really depressed. She's really depressed." Well, I didn't think of myself as depressed. Yeah. But then we saw this doctor that I mentioned that tried a number of things. And one thing he said, what really helps people with fibromyalgia and a lot of chronic illnesses is an antidepressant.
Mhm.
Well, I was not yet a licensed counselor, and I did not want to go on an antidepressant medication. I just had that stigma against it. And I don't, want to go on medication. A lot of us don't.
Mhm.
And yet, because he said it's one of the things that helps people, especially when you're ill, your body needs to get its juices going again. And that's what an antidepressant does. It gets this determination going that is not able to happen. So I started on an antidepressant, and it for sure had a big piece in this whole health improvement process.
I know, Mary. I didn't obviously know a lot of this about you, but I share in that. And I feel I have several clients that have gone through situations where they have felt, whether physically, emotionally, whatever the situation was going on in their lives, they had a similar thought like you, kind of didn't want to do the antidepressant, the stigma around it.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling more and more, Mary, and I don't know that, or you're seeing that in your field, that
Mhm.
individuals are more open to that and recognizing that it is a tool. It is
Yeah.
a tool, and
Hmm.
it's not, the end all be all. It's something to help you get to the next step. And I
Definitely.
believe it sounds like you exactly. That's what happened for myself as well. I was depressed. My life changed. I didn't wasn't doing the same things I was doing before in many ways, and I didn't. This was, like I said, over 25 years ago for myself. I didn't want to do medication. I was a health professional at that time, a trainer, a health promotions manager. How could I be doing that? But remember what you said a little bit ago. If you want to get better, you got to do things that make you uncomfortable. And I did. I did do it for a period of time and it got me through, I felt, a period of time that I needed it to just the
Yeah.
next step.
Yes, because depression or just having a low mood, all
Mhm.
that is our brain chemicals. It's actually a physical thing, as I'm sure you know. Our dopamine, our serotonin, our endorphins, those have been depleted. Our brain chemicals get depleted by stress and pain, and physical problems are stress. So they need the help. A lot of times they can't get themselves back up to their normal level, and that's what an antidepressant does. It gets
Mhm.
those brain chemicals back up, so like you said, over after a while, you can taper off when you're better. Now you can keep those brain chemicals at their optimal level most of the time.
Mhm. Why do you think it was
Yeah.
such a stigma and things have changed now? And I feel like, in talking with my clients, because I do mindset and fitness coaching, mainly
Yeah.
with women, why do you think, and I don't know if you've seen in your field now, has it
Yeah.
kind of shifted to it's more acceptable? People are talking about it more. Why do you think?
Yeah, I love these times we live in because our culture has just gotten so much more open talking about mental health as a normal thing to have struggles with your mental health, whether it's anxiety, depression, and people are just more and more open talking about it, more and more talking about their medication that they need to be on.
Mhm.
And I think our culture is just a lot more open to talk about its personal problems. I mean, even Prince Harry of England, has talked about his mental health struggles. And
Mhm.
so, we've all just benefited. Now, I know there are certain communities in our larger culture that are still kind of have a stigma to it. A lot of times it can be with faith-based communities or
Okay.
maybe certain cultural communities, and they still have their people, championing the cause to
Mhm.
help us all to not be embarrassed or ashamed that
Mhm.
struggles are normal in life. Mental health during our life's journey, most of us are going to need help. So it's a good time we're living in.
Yeah, I agree, Mary. Now, what I'm thinking about is during that time, during that 6 years, and even after, looking for opportunities and ways to find the right perfect puzzle, the pieces to this puzzle for your health journey.
Yeah.
Were you working at that time? Were you still counseling during that time? I know obviously you had your kids, you've got your husband, and you're still working with crew, but are you counseling at that time? I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Well, it's very interesting because all this crisis happened for me, right? But from 1990s to 2003 was kind of a big point. So I had not become licensed yet. I was very full time in our work of helping people in other countries in other ways. And I kept doing that to the best of my ability because I just have a passion for that. But the wonderful thing that happened through this, as with so many struggles, is that it opens new thinking and new doors of opportunity. So as I was getting better in 2003, I started getting better and I thought, and I was back in America by now, I was in California. Thought, what could I do to at least sort of be getting out and doing something? Because I had about a year where I was so bad I could hardly leave the house. I thought, well, I've always wanted to help here with counseling. Maybe I could take a class. So I had my daughter who was just gotten her driver's permit. There was a class, a university program 45 minutes away. I wasn't sure I could even drive 45 minutes yet because my arms. She rode with me to see could I drive to this university, take a class, drive home. She drove so that she rode with me so she could take over if I needed her.
Wow.
So I started taking one class I wasn't even thinking I could get my master's in counseling. I took one class. I thought I'll start with one and I can be learning. The first day of class, I was so bad I could not write and take notes. So this is an example of just being outlandishly unashamed. I stood in front of the class. I said, I'm have fibromyalgia badly. I can't write notes. Was there anyone that would let me photocopy your notes after class each day so that I could study? And two ladies raised their hands. So I would photocopy their handwritten notes. Well, long story short, I took that class. Well, what happened is you're doing something you love, it helps you get better physically. So, do you know that within 2 years, I completed my master's program and in counseling, and then continued about 5 years? You have to be a supervised intern
Mhm.
after that. And all that was boosting my health because I was doing something new that I was learning and I love. So I was counseling and learning, and finally was able to just counsel totally because I got, so much better.
Wow. What a story, Mary.
Yeah. If I
Total
can do it, anybody can. Yeah.
total growth mindset. That growth mindset is, and I could be wrong. You could have known what you were doing, getting into it in terms of, like, I know I'm going to start doing this right. I'm going to feel better. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm thinking you probably didn't. You probably were just like, me, like, oh, let me just start doing something I really enjoy doing. And
Yes.
oh my gosh,
Yes.
imagine what impact that has on you, not just mentally, but physically.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
I totally think one of the reason I was getting better and better and better because I was doing something I wanted to do and I really wanted to keep being able to do it. And it was, it was stimulating the brain chemicals. It was stimulating me motivationally because I really wanted this. So I'd say, yeah, a part of the recipe is doing something you love or pursuing something new with whatever little capacity you have to start with, not knowing, like you said, I didn't know I was going to be able to work for my master's. I'm just taking a class to start with. Yeah.
Well, not only that, Mary, what's going to stick in my mind, I hope it does for everyone that hears and watches this, is that, you determined, right?
Mhm.
Determined. You
Yeah.
asked your daughter who just got her driver's license, right?
Yeah.
To drive you. I mean, that's the visual that's going to stick in my head, is like, that's someone who has a true desire and a true passion and the
Uh-huh.
support. The
Yeah.
support. You didn't
Yeah.
have to, have the whole family there holding your hand. You asked your daughter, boom,
Yeah.
and that's what kickstarted. That's what got things going. So,
Yeah.
absolutely, whatever little or big thing that you can do to get you pushed in that direction, do
Yes.
it.
Exactly. Not knowing where it might end up,
Mhm.
even if it's simply that I took a class, learned from it, enjoyed it, that would have boosted me also. So yes, 100%. Start with small and see where it takes you. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that you mentioned, I want to get into that, is your work with crew and in terms of counseling individuals from all over the world, different cultures, and that
Yeah.
influence and impact it had on you, which I
Yeah.
didn't even think about in terms of when you were talking about the antidepressants and the different cultures and the way in other individuals will deal with their problems. How do you see any similarities? Do we have similarities as Americans to other people in other countries when it comes to these types of issues?
Yeah, we do. We have similarities and we have differences. Like I did discover that like New Zealand, Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and Russia, which we also had a lot of dealings with, they were then and maybe still are more advanced in considering and using natural types of remedies. We've been a little behind in that. They have done that for a long time, and like an example is when I was in New Zealand, I fell and hurt my ankle, and this was in the early 1990s, and I went to a physical therapist, and she was like, "Oh, well, how about this is a physical therapy? How about
Mhm.
if we use acupuncture?" Well, I had never even I'd heard of it, but it was a voodoo thing. It was a weird thing. And I think I was so tense when she was doing it, it didn't benefit me. And so they were back then in America, it wasn't thought of very much. And they were way ahead of us in that. But so they have been different in that, similar in a lot of countries. It varies by country to country for sure, are much less open to mental health, like an antidepressant or even counseling. It still has that stigma. Not, some would be ahead of us, some behind. So yeah, there is a variety. The good thing with our training as licensed therapists is they really do. There's a big emphasis on being sensitive to that. If a person is from a different culture, be aware that you don't know, and you need to ask them questions and learn from them what works in their culture, and don't force them to do what works, in your culture. So that's been a great bit of me.
That sounds like a very practical approach. It sounds like something I'm sure you do with all your clients. I do as well. It's like, what parameters, what works for you? It's not for us to go in there and tell them, but to listen
Yeah.
to what's been working and not working, and then make some adjustments for some improvements. Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Mary, with regard to your faith and spirituality, how and do you weave that into your counseling with your clients?
Yeah. So if clients are wanting to incorporate spiritual truths and principles, then that's what we work with. If they're
Mm.
closed, of course I don't. But most of them do want to work with spiritual things. And then I have the step of asking, do they want to work with, Christian principles and practices? Many, many, many do. And the interesting thing is Jesus, when someone asks Jesus, what's the most important thing in life? He said it's to love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. It's to have this personal relationship with God. And that is such a sustaining, secure, safe, health inducing kind of relationship. So we explore that. We work with principles that help them from a Christian standpoint. I also will use mindfulness principles, which is approaching a spirituality. Sometimes it can be within Christianity, or it doesn't have to be. And, mindfulness, one simple definition is learning to live in the moment, non judgmentally. So there's so much depth to mindfulness. So I work with a lot of principles and practices of mindfulness also, which could fall under that spiritual category.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, without a doubt, Mary. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your books. I know you've got several books. So
Yeah.
if you can just give us the names and just a little bit about what inspired you or what the pathways for each of those books.
Okay. Well, for sure, my one that I wrote about how to make your own personal plan if you have a chronic illness or any kind of physical thing. How can you make your own plan for improvement? I told my own story, and through it, I coach people how to make their own plan. That's my book, Breaking Free. All of these you can get on Amazon by searching for the title and my name. Actually, it's easier to go to my website, maryhenderson.org. So
Perfect.
it'll have all these books with a link to Amazon. So
Excellent.
that, of course, I was inspired by my own story, and I got emails from all over the world asking, "How did you get better? How did you do it?" Thought I got to put it in a book, and so
Very
that's
good.
that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the next one that came along is I was realizing as a counselor how much the bottom line what we're trying to do is increase more joy in our life, more well-being. And so I developed little mini adventures, I call them little exercises to help people increase their joy and well-being. So that's retrain your brain for joy. It says 31 mini adventures. And I used these in my own life to increase my joy and still do. They're very easy to do throughout your day, and they're fun. They're creative,
I
and
know.
they help a chronic health problem because, as our mood increases, so does our physical health.
Mhm.
And then to increase our peace, I discovered exercises and approaches, and that was Rest for Your Soul by Mary Henderson. These are exercises I do with clients and myself that increase your peace and your restfulness, and they are based on mindfulness. There's some that are just the pure mindfulness, some exercises, and some combine also like a Christian perspective with the mindfulness principle. And then finally, the one that just came out this month,
Mhm.
October 1st,
Uh-huh.
is Beyond. And it's kind of, this subtitle says it all: Create a life you love after 50, 60, 70, and more. And that's what it's about. I've written with three other authors who are all, as we say, well over 50. And we just help people create a game plan for the life that they really want. And then we answer over 300 questions that come up during this life phase that no one told us were coming. Things about our relationship with grown kids, with grandkids, with in laws, health stuff, our mental health. So, anyway, those are the four. I wrote this because I was motivated for my own journey. And there's not much out there. I discovered there's not nearly as much for the life phases after 50 as there are for the life phases before. So,
Well, I'm officially in the 50. I'm your clientele for that book. I'm
oh,
51 as of about a week ago, so I'm going to
oh,
be picking up that book and going through it with a fine tooth comb, Mary.
that's good to start early. Then we wrote these and this book afterwards, and we wish we had known some of these things. So good job starting early. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, Mary. Last question here. I want to ask you: are you a fit fanatic? And if you are, how do you like to stay healthy, active, and mobile?
100%. I'm a fit fanatic. Part of my journey is I will not go a day without an hour of movement. And, I've worked up. When I started, okay, when I was in the wheelchair, I had to start with 17 steps a day. So I was in a wheelchair. I could not walk hardly around the house at all. And I started over, how many steps can I walk? And I counted 17. And
Yeah.
I thought, okay, every day I'm going to try to increase one. So 18, 19. Some days I'd have to go back because something flared up to 15, 16. Now I could walk hours. I hike everywhere, but I will walk. Do my rower. I will do my cycle. I'll do a lot of different kinds of exercises for different muscle groups. So I won't go without, because not only does it affect my physical health, but this is a proven fact, so much better emotionally when you are regularly exercising. So yes, I'm a fit fanatic.
Welcome to the group, Mary. Welcome to the group. We're happy to have you. and, and with that being said, I want to thank you so much, Mary, for your time, your expertise, and wonderful advice for those who are looking to make a difference in their lives. Thank you, Mary.
It's my pleasure.
And to everyone, thank you for joining us today at the Fit Fanatics. Until next time.